Good morning. Sharing my screen. We've covered the value sets and the flex fields yesterday. And in the flex fields, we've looked at how a descriptive flex field works, and we've also looked at how extensible flex fields work. And today we're going to look at a key flex field. We're going to configure one of them and see how it works in the application. So one difference between DFF, EFF, and KFF is typically KFF is used to store the key information, not the additional information as in the case of DFF or the EFF. KFF is typically used to store the key information. So if you want to see what are the key flex fields available in the instance, all you have to do is log into the instance, go to Functional Setup Manager, go to Setup and Maintenance, and go to Global Search. Manage key flex fields, search for it, and you will be able to see, once you get into the task, you will be able to see the key flex fields that are available in the instance. And if you do a blind search, you will be able to see that there are around 10 or 11 key flex fields available in the instance or available in ERP Cloud. And if you look at financials, you've got accounting flex field, which is a key. And in fact, every finance implementation, it starts off with configuring the accounting key flex field. So this is where you define how many segments you want to have on a chart of accounts, right? So yeah, you've got other flex fields as well. Like in the case of SH, you've got a couple of them, and in the case of HCM, you've got for payroll, you have a cost allocation flex field. So this controls how payroll costing should work and how the cost should be allocated. So it's again, you define the segments and other stuff here, or you define how the cost needs to be allocated. And in the case of HCM, if you look at a global HR, you've got a flex field, key flex field, which you can use to group people, okay, which you can configure and use to group people based on a client requirement. So when you're hiring an employee, you in the assignments tab, when you're adding an assignment, you will have an option to you will see this flex field showing up there, and you can use this key flex field to group people together. So say, for example, I'm just giving a hypothetical scenario here. Say, for example, for every person a company is hiring, say your client wants to track what is their skill, what is their key skill, and what is their skill level in that. So probably Fusion Technical and the skill level of Mastery. So if client wants to store such information, like a skill or a skill level, so that they can use it down the line, to group the people together. So at a later point, if they want to figure out how many people do we have with the skill set of Fusion Technical. Okay, so client can use or rely on the key flex field configuration for that. So what do you do? The way you configure and enable key flex field it's more or less similar to what you have done in DFF. So yes, configuring accounting flex field and showing it in action, it takes probably 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, so what we do is, we pick up this flex field, people group flex field, as an example. We will configure it, and and after you configure the key flex fields, another major difference between KFF and DFF is you will have to link up the key flex fields in the setups. In the setup, you need to mention that please go ahead and use the key flex field structure that you are going to create. Okay, so yes, we'll use people group as an example, and we will enable a couple of segments called skill and skill level on a people group flex field. And the way you configure key flex field is, there are 2 steps you have to do. You will have to first create a structure. Wherein you mention how many segments do you want to have, and then you create an instance using that structure. Okay, so it's a normal process that you need to follow. I think we have pretty much the same process in EBS as well. So you create a structure first where you mention the number of segments and you create an instance of it. And then you deploy the flex field. Once it is deployed, you will go ahead and use this structure instance in the configuration. Okay, so you go to legal entity and tag the structure instance. And then once you do that bit, if you go ahead and hire an employee with that legal entity or in that legal entity, you will notice you will see the key flex field that you have configured. Okay, so go ahead and click on manage structures. And you can create a new structure. You can see what structures exist in the application already, and you can create a new one. And say FT14 PPG people group flex field. And you can probably use the same thing as name as well. And you need to select the delimiter. How do you want the segments to be delimited by? We're going to enable a couple of segments, right? Skill and skill level. What do you want to separate those two values? What do you want to use as a delimiter? Is it a dot? Is it hyphen? Or is it something else that you want to use? So you can pick up the one of your choice, but we go with a dot in the session. So if you enable a couple of segments, skill and skill level, as and when you enter values in those two segments, those will be delimited by this particular value. And you go ahead and save it to see this plus symbol enabled. Plus gets enabled and you add in the segment there. And what do you want to call this segment? You want to call it as skill and use it as a skill in all the prompts, short prompt, long prompt, etc. Display width, you can give it as a 15. No need of a range type. And if you look at the column, you can pick up segment 1 as a column and you can tag the value set here again. But we have used up all the value sets that we created. So we're going to go with seeded value sets here for this example. So we'll see if there is any 10 character or 30 character value set and we go ahead and use it. $30 characters, no validation. And we can click on save and close. Click on the plus icon again. And we call this as a skill level, a second segment. Sequence number 2, prompt, short prompt, I'll use as a skill level itself. Display prompt as 15 and column use segment 2. And you can again select a 30 characters default value set. If you want to give user a drop down for a skill level as well as skill, instead of letting them type in whatever they want, you can do so. You can create a value set and you can enter the skills into that value set and attach it to skill segment. And for skill level as well, you can add in say probably a mastery or intermediate or a basic values in an independent value set, and you can attach that independent value set here so that user gets a drop down and they will select the skill value. Okay. But here we are leaving it as a wide open. We are just putting in a format restriction. Save and close. We have created a structure now. With 2 segments. And what do you need to do after that? You need to create a structure instance, right? So we created structure with 2 segments. We need to create an instance for that. Go ahead and create one. FT14 PPG instance. Use the same thing as name as well. And yes, it is enabled and dynamic combination creation allowed. Ensure that this is ticked. And what this means is if you're selecting a new combination of skill and skill level, and if it doesn't exist in the instance, it will be allowed. A dynamic combination will be created on the fly. And you won't get any errors if you tick this box. So click on the structure name and you should pick up the structure that you have created, FT14PPG. And once you select the structure, the segments that you have configured in the structure will show up here. Okay, and all you have to do is save and close. Done. And you need to deploy the flex field. So we have created structure, created an instance of it, and we need to deploy it. Go ahead and deploy it. And once it is deployed, we need to link this up in the setup. So we need to attach the structure instance at a legal entity level. You can attach it at two levels. You can attach people group flex field at two levels, at enterprise level and at a legal entity level. Okay, so I'll show you how to do it at both the levels. Key flex fields usually take a bit longer than a DFF or a EFF deployment. So we can go ahead and open a new session. Meanwhile, stuck at 99%. Okay, it's completed successfully, and you should see the status getting changed to green now. So you go to global HR and you see the status is green now, and you can log into the instance from a different browser or a different session. And you can, what do you need to do? There is one additional step that you need to do. We have defined a KFF and we need to tell HCM to use that new structure instance that you have created. Okay, so the way you do it is you go into a global search screen, and if you search for a task called manage HCM information, there will be two levels at which HCM information can be maintained. Okay, so in fact 3 levels, but these two are key. Enterprise level, you have an option to maintain the HCM information. There are a few things that you define at enterprise level, and whatever you define at enterprise level is typically it will be applicable for all the legal entities. Okay, but if you want to override something at a legal entity level, you can do that as well here using this particular task. So the people group flex field, picking up an instance for a people group flex field, that option is available at the enterprise level as well as at the legal entity level. Okay, so if you go into enterprise level, you can edit and correct it. And when you edit and correct it, it will show you, you will be able to see, if you scroll down, you will be able to see this people group flex field structure. I have an increased zoom size, so that's why it's not appearing properly. Yeah. You see this people group flex field structure, there is a structure instance attached here. So here we need to select the one that you have created. Okay, so this is where you tie the structure instance that you have defined. So you can search for FT14 and select it. Okay, so we are selecting people group flex field structure at enterprise level. And when you do it this way, it becomes applicable for all the it becomes applicable by default for all the legal entities. But if you want to overwrite it at a legal entity level, say for example, if you want to have a different people group flex field at a legal entity or for any specific legal entity, you can overwrite it at legal entity level as well. So if you go back to a legal entity, you have an option to overwrite it here if you want. So say for example, I will use a specific legal entity called, I will use this legal entity to hire an employee. So I'll edit it. And I will correct it. And you have an option to attach a people group flex field structure here. So now, what structure is assigned at an enterprise level? At an enterprise level, you have FT14 attached. But at the legal entity level, what do you have? You have FT6 attached, right? So if I try to hire an employee into Dinesh US Retail legal entity, whatever segments you have in FT6 will show up, not in FT14. Okay, so whatever you enter at a legal entity level, this will override the enterprise configuration. So let's select FT14 here as well. And submit it. And once you do that, we can go ahead and try to hire an employee into this. And in the assignment page, we should be able to see the skill and skill level that we have configured. Click on that. And how do we test this? We test this by hiring an employee. So you go into My Client Group and go to New Person. Hire an employee. And you select hire option there. It's okay, it doesn't matter what action or reason you pick in the legal employer. This is where you need to pick up Dinesh legal entity. Yeah, because this is a legal entity where my structure instance is attached. So you can add in any names in there. It doesn't matter. And you just fill in only the mandatory information, and I need to fill in address as well and go till employment information tab because the flex field will show up in this tab. So in the person information tab, so this is where you save the employee address. So you type in a zip code, type in 60606 and it will default the address. And you can add in a default address line there. And then go to the next screen. And this is where you will be able to see in the employment information tab, you will be able to see the key flex field that we have configured. If you scroll down, you see people group flex field here. And you click on the drop down, you click on the search icon, and when you do a search, it will show you the segments that you have configured. It will show you the skill and the skill level that you have configured. And these are looking like a text boxes because we have attached a 30 character value set there. But if you have probably attached an independent value set with the skills in there like Java, Fusion, Technical, OIC, you would probably see a drop down in there. Okay. And you can enter, say, a Fusion Tech, and you say mastery, and you can do a search, and that will see if the combination already exists, and it says there are no results found. And what you can do is, that's okay, since we enable dynamic insertion, even though this combination doesn't exist, it gets created on the fly. And when you click on OK, you will see that the combination gets created. And you will see the segments are delimited by dot because we have used a dot as a delimiter, right? Not sure why it's taking so much time. Yeah, you could see that it's populated now. And the segments are delimited by dot. Okay. And the values that you enter here, so where will these values be stored? These values will be stored in the segment columns, unlike the DFF or EFF. In the DFF, where did they get stored? They got stored in attribute columns, right? So when we create a DFF, it got stored in attribute 1 and attribute 2. But KFFs, it gets stored in segment columns. Okay. We won't be saving employees because creating a location or job is fine, but we don't want to unnecessarily load in employees or save them to the instance just to see how the KFF works. But as you can see here, this is how you configure KFF, and when you configure it, it won't get reflected immediately in the instance until you tag the structure instance that you have created to the legal employer in which you're trying to hire an employee. Okay. Any questions, guys? Any questions in the key flex field?
Prasad, one quick question. You updated the PPG instance in an existing enterprise and the legal entity, right? If the entries were already there, it wouldn't let us change, right?
If the entries are already there.
If I've used the entries for the previous PPG, for the previous PPG instance, then I would not be able to update with new instance, right? Because there's some data already exists for the previous one.
Yeah, but probably the previous, because when it, and that's one of the reasons why I don't ask students to save the employee. Because if you see till what step did we do? We have only seen the information in the page, but we didn't save it. So a student would also do till that part only. So they would have created instance, but didn't use it. But what you said is right. Yes, if the structure is already used, yeah, it gets quite difficult to change. Yeah. The same as in KFF. Same, and it still works the same way as in EBS.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And let's briefly talk about lookups. Lookups, as everyone know, what is it used for? It is basically used to store some configurable values, right? So in case there is a value which you want to refer in say a BIP report or within the application, if you want to show them as list items, that's when lookups are typically created. You have thousands of lookups delivered by Oracle out of the box, and you can also create custom lookups. How do you create a custom lookup? The way you create it is you go into, you search for manage lookups, manage common lookups. And you go ahead and create a new one. Click on the plus icon and you will be able to create a new one. So you can say, create a lookup like this. You can give a meaning. Okay, and you can tag a module. So for which module you want to use this, or in which module you want to use this. In case you want to use it in, say, receivables. Okay, you can select AR application in there. And you don't see a plus symbol enabled here. So you create a lookup header first, you create a lookup type, and then you add entries into the lookup, right? So you save it. And when you save it, you see the plus symbol gets enabled. Okay, it says it has to be all uppercase. Okay, and I don't think a space will also be allowed. So I'll just change it and save it. And after you save it, you will be able to add your own entries in here. You click on the plus icon and you add in your own entry there. Okay, you can add in your entries like this. And when do you exactly create a lookup? You create a lookup whenever you want to store some values which you want to probably refer in a BIP report or other components. And what is the benefit of using a lookup? Tomorrow, if the value changes, you don't need to edit the report or the component where you are using those values or referring to these values. You can directly update them in the lookup so that the updated values gets reflected in there. And for a lookup, there is something called as a configuration level in ERP Cloud. So lookup configuration level will determine what you will be able to perform, what actions you will be able to perform on the lookup. So if you look at the PPT, there are 3 types of configuration levels possible. A lookup can have a configuration level of user or extensible or a system. When you create a new lookup, it will have a configuration level of user, which means you can perform any action on the lookup. Like you can add your own entries in there. You can add your own entry and you can delete the entry that you have added, and you can do pretty much anything you want in there. Okay, so that's because the lookup configuration level was user. But for some of the lookups that Oracle delivered out of the box, they would have marked it as extensible or system. Okay, so I've listed on three lookups in brackets, which have these 3 are again the seeded lookups, all 3 given by Oracle, but with different configuration levels. So say for example, if you search for, say for example, let's search with a system lookup, A-based state. Okay, so if you go ahead and search for this lookup type, what is the configuration level? It is system. And what that means is, yes, this is a lookup that is created by Oracle and it has come out of the box. And you can see 2 entries in there, but you don't see an option to add a new entry or to delete an existing entries, which means, yes, I've created it and I've used it myself. So, but I won't give you any access to perform any change on this lookup. So that is what a system lookup system configuration level means. So Oracle has locked down the lookups, which it doesn't want clients to edit by setting up the configuration level as system. And you can have, but some of the lookups wherein Oracle wants clients to extend or to be able to add new entries, it would have used extensible configuration level in there. So if you look at the disability reason, so this is another seeded lookup again. You search for it. This is an extensible lookup. And since it's an extensible lookup, you will not be able to edit the existing entries or delete them, but you can add in a new entry, which means you can extend the lookup. And you've got another type of lookups called user lookups, which means you can pretty much do anything on the lookup. Okay, so if it's user, that means you can add a new entry, you can delete the existing entries, and you have full control on these lookups. So if you create a custom lookup, it will have a configuration level of user by default. And out of the lookups that are delivered by Oracle, there are 3 possible configuration levels: a system, extensible, or user. System, you won't be able to do anything. User, you will be able to do everything. Extensible, it's like a part access that you get. You can extend it, but you won't be able to delete the entries given by Oracle. Okay. Any questions, guys? Any questions in here? Okay. I will take it as no. And let's move on. Enterprise structures, P2P cycle and O2C cycle will be covered as part of the functional overview sessions. And you will be having sessions starting this Saturday. So as I mentioned at the beginning of in the initial sessions, weekdays you will have technical training, weekends functional training. Weekends sessions will be from 7 to 9 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, and you will have sessions starting this Saturday. And Ravi will be taking those sessions, and he will be covering functional setup manager. He will be covering enterprise structures, P2P and O2C cycles. All these things will be covered in a functional overview sessions. So we'll go ahead and start
7 to 9?
Yes, I said 7 to 9. Please note that the timings, there is a change in the timings. Class will be held from 7 to 9. It's not 8 to 9:30. It's 8 to 9:30 for weekdays, technical training, weekends, functional training, 7 to 9, only on Saturday and Sunday. Okay. And again, Ravi will be sending out a detailed communication about that, and he will also include a meeting link in there. So you won't be joining my meeting link on Saturday and Sunday. You will be joining Ravi's meeting link. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with the BIP reports. And so this is one of the key components that you will be working on in real time. And I'll give you an introduction to BIP report. I'll explain what is the process you need to follow to build a BIP report. I'll introduce you to the use case. And for BIP reports, we've got multiple reporting options, as you can see here. We've got a BIP as well as OTBI when it comes to reporting on transactional data. So for BIP, we will be using an example from financials. We will be building an AR invoice print report. But for OTBI, we will be using an example from HCM. We will be building an employee assignment report. So that way we cover both the use cases. BIP will create an AR invoice print report. OTBI will create an employee assignment report. Let me go back to the previous slide. So for building a BIP report, you need to build a data model first.
Ravi,
this data model is like.
I'm sorry to disturb you because I thought, so can you, at least for initial one day or at least for some time, can you name it the full form? Because for you, it will be easy, what is BIP, right? We'll get some confused.
So you don't know the full form of BIP, and is that what you're saying? But I believe, yeah. Okay. So BIP, it stands for BA Publisher Report, and hereafter I will be referring to it as a BIP reports. So yeah, I thought all of you have a prior e-business suite experience. So
Publisher Report, but terminology, I want to be make use of terminology too.
Okay, BIP stands for BA Publisher. But throughout the session, I will be referring to it as BIP. I can't call it as BA Publisher Report every time I say it, because I repeat this 100 times in the session, and every time I can't say BA Publisher. But whenever I say BIP reports for everyone attending the session, please translate it as BA Publisher Report. So this is the same report that you use to build an e-business suite as well, right? So it is a BIP report or an OTBI report that you build, especially when it comes to reporting on transactions. And for building a BA Publisher or a BIP report, there are two bits involved in there. Okay, so you have to what do you do in a report? All you need to do is there is data lying in the database tables. You need to extract it and you need to present it in a format that client wants it, right? So that can be split into 2 bits. So yes, you have data lying in the database and that needs to be extracted. And to extract that information, you will be building a data model. So you need to build a data model first, wherein you will plug in your SQL queries and extract the information from a database tables. But after you build the data model, if you export the output that will be generated will be in XML format. Don't worry if you don't know XML. I'll show you how the XML format looks like, and I'll explain what is a start tag and end tag, and show you how it looks like. That XML output is not readable. Okay, so you cannot easily consume it. You cannot display that output to the business user because it doesn't make sense. So what you need to do is you need to convert that XML output. So I think I'll show you when we build the data model. I'll show you how XML looks like. So to convert that XML output into more readable format, you need to build a report layout. So how do you build this report layout? You will be creating an RTF document, which stands for rich text format. You will be building an RTF document and you will be uploading it. You will be using that RTF document to convert that XML output into a more readable format such as a CSV or a PDF. So when I say, when you have to generate a report layout, if you have a prior experience in building BA Publisher report in eBusiness Suite, you would have created those RTF, the RTF documents, rich text format documents from scratch, right? But in ERP Cloud, you have an option called auto generate. Okay, so you can, after you build a data model, you can auto generate an RTF template, which will save quite a bit of time. So we show you how to auto generate a template. And then when the template is auto generated, RTF template, there will be few bits that you might want to definitely change in there. Okay, so it comes with Oracle logo and some seeded, and it by default includes all the fields that you have in the data model. Yes, Karthik. Yes, Karthik. I could see that you have raised your hand. Do you want to ask anything? Not sure. Yeah. Okay, so you can, we will create a report layout. We'll show you how to create a report layout, how to auto generate one, and how to build it and how to edit it as well. And then when you create and run the report, we will be building it in the reports and analytics work area. But to run it from the application, you have to register it as ESS job. We'll see that process as well. And there are a couple of points that we cover. Okay. So to report on transactions, there are 2 options. You can create it as a BA Publisher report. Okay. Or you can create it as an OTBI report if you have to build a report on transactions. What is a transactional database report? It's like AR invoice print report or a purchase order print report, right? So a BA Publisher, it stands for Business Intelligence Publisher, in case someone is looking for a full form. Business Intelligence Publisher report. So it is a sort of a report, one type of report you can build in Business Intelligence Server available within the ERP Cloud instance. Okay, we'll show you how to build one, and we'll do it in few minutes from now. And OTBI, it stands for Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence. This is a new type of a report that you can build only in ERP Cloud. We didn't have this option in eBusiness Suite. In eBusiness Suite, you have an option to build a BIP report, but not OTBI. So when you have 2 options, obviously the comparison comes into picture, right? So when to use which option? Typically, when you're building reports like AR invoice print report or a purchase order print report, wherein you have a PDF output. So say, for example, if you have to generate a PDF output that looks like this. If you have to generate a PDF output, if you have to print invoice in this PDF format, okay. So if you have a well laid out a PDF output that you need to generate, And if you have a specific format for a report layout, in such cases, you will be building it as a BI publisher report. So this is one such case where you have a specific format and a detailed layout you need for your report, then you build it as a BIP report. Another reason when you use BIP is when you have to deal with high volume of data. So say, for example, if you want to deal with more than, say, 50,000 records in a specific report, then you will use it. You use a BIP report for that. And if it is, when do you use OTBI? So in BIP, to build, so if you have to build a BI publisher report, you will have to write your own SQL queries. Okay, so you need to, functional consultant will let you know the use case. He will show you the screens. He will tell you what the use case is, and he will explain what you need to pull and how the output needs to look like. And you will have to help yourself. So you need to identify the tables, identify the join conditions between them, and then you create a data model and all that stuff. But the benefit with OTBI is Oracle has already written few SQL statements. Okay, there are quite a few. And Oracle has wrote those comprehensive SQL queries, and it has exposed them as subject areas. So if you have to build an OTBI report, you don't need to write SQL queries because Oracle has done it for you. And in OTBI report, when do you use OTBI? You will use it when you have to perform some ad hoc, when you have to build some ad hoc reports, or if you want to display the information in a graphical format. And say, for example, if you get a report requirement which is likely to change, so they ask you to pull few columns today, and tomorrow they said they want to add 2 more columns or delete 3 more columns in there. So if you need the flexibility in the report build, yes, you can build it as an OTBI report. Okay. So this is, so we'll start off with BI Publisher today, and yeah, it will take few days because this is, remember, BIP and OTBI, these two will be used as a reporting option as well as outbound integration. So even if you want to extract something from ERP Cloud, if you want to do the bulk extraction, you will be using BI Publisher report to do that as well, because you can't create a PLSQL package and generate a file and place it in FTP as you do in eBusiness Suite. You can't do it in ERP Cloud because you don't get access to the database. Okay. And for these two, for the BI Publisher reports as well as OTBI reports, you have got quite a few options given by Oracle. Okay, so there are many seeded reports, many seeded BIP reports and OTBI reports given out of the box by Oracle. Okay, so say, for example, for BIP, you've got journal batch summary report, you've got payables cash requirement report, and you've got quite a few apart from these. And similarly for OTBI also, you have n number of seeded reports. Okay, now let's go get into the application and let me explain the use case now. What exactly are we going to build? So go back into the application. And so if you go into receivables and get into billing, so we are going to create an AR invoice print report using a BI Publisher. For BIP, we're going to print AR invoice, create AR invoice print report. And in AR module, accounts receivable module, yes, transactions will be created. And those transactions, it could be invoice, credit memo, debit memo. So those transactions need to be printed and sent across to the customer, saying that we have delivered this service, or we have delivered so and so a service or a product, and for which you need to make a payment of this much amount to us by this date. So you create a transaction in AR, and you print it and you send it across to the customer, letting him know what he has bought from you, and that will also contain the details as to how much he needs to pay you, and it will also contain a payment term, which will indicate how much time the customer has to make a payment. And let's pick up a sample transaction from here. So let's pick up, I'll pick up 5001 as an example. I'll pick up one of the sample transaction, edit it. And if you look at the invoice details, yes, you have invoice header level details, some header level details on the invoice, and on an invoice you have customer, right? So think of this invoice as an invoice you receive from Amazon or a Flipkart when you buy something, right? So you have the details on the invoice, header level details, and you have your own details in there. You will have a bill to customer and a ship to location, ship to customer, and you will have a payment terms. This will determine by what time customer needs to make a payment, and you have a lines as well. And in these line section, you will mention what items or service you have delivered to the customer, what is the quantity, unit price, and what is the amount that needs to be paid by the customer. So a requirement is to create a report which will pull a few details from the invoice header, pull the customer bill to and ship to details, and pull the details from a line section, and generate a report layout like this, and generate a report output that looks like this. Okay, so client would give you this PDF document, and they will say that I want to print AR invoices in this particular format. They want to have their own logo. They want to give a heading in there, and at the header level or at the beginning of the report, they want to print few details from invoice header. So if you look at the invoice header, you have a transaction number in there, right? So you have, we're going to pull few columns from the header. We'll pull transaction number, business unit. We will pull the transaction date and the currency. We'll pull 4 columns from the header, but you can extrapolate that query and include other columns as well that you want to pull. And we're going to pull the customer details and print it there. So you see the bill to customer and the ship to customer details. So you see only the bill to name and a bill to site here. If you click on show more, it will show you a few more fields that are hidden by default. So if you scroll down, you see for customer, you have a bill to customer account number, and you have address as well, bill to address, and you have ship to, same details available for ship to. So we need to print those details here, the bill to customer and the ship to customer details along with the address. And after that, you need to print the lines on the invoice that you have on the invoice. You need to print the amounts, and you also need to print a total or a summary, sum of all the lines amount here. So this is a report use case. And so we are going to create this report, and we're going to register this as an ESS job. ESS stands for Enterprise Service Scheduler Job. It is nothing but, you can think of it as a replacement of concurrent program. So in EBS, if you build some technical component, you will register it as a concurrent program and execute it, right? So in ERP Cloud, if you build something, if you build a technical component like a BIP report, and if you want to register it, and if you want to run it from the application, from the schedule process screen, you will have to register it as an ESS job. So we will see, I'll walk you through the process of registering the report as an ESS job. First, this walkthrough will be given to you by functional consultant. He'll tell you where the information is available, from where you need to pick it up, and what information you need to pick up. Also, he will mention, he'll capture it in a specification and he'll pass it on to you. And he will also share the output format in which he is expecting a PDF output to be generated. Okay, so with these details, you need to create a report output. So you need to create this AR invoice print report. Okay, so any questions in the use case phase? Is everyone with me, or do you have any questions?
Ravi, one quick question. I don't want to, disturb here.
Yeah.
So when you say that while generating the BA report, we should create the ESS for output to be shared, right? ESS job.
No. That is a final step. So you can, when we create a report, we create it in a BI server. As a technical consultant, we go to BI server, business intelligence server, and we create a report there. You can execute it from there, but